David Grayson had built his life around perfection. Discipline wasn't just a habit, it was his way of living. Every minute of his day was planned, every meeting timed to the second. Surprises? Not in his world. At least, not until that morning. When two 10-year-old boys stood in the marble-floored lobby of a luxury hotel, looked him straight in the eye, and said 4 words that shook his world. "You are our father." At first, he didn't understand. Maybe he misheard. But the serious look in the boys' eyes and the determination in their voices changed everything. They were twins. Dark brown hair, blue eyes, a serious posture just like him in his childhood photos. One of them was clutching a worn-out backpack like it held his whole world. David's first reaction was defense. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" he asked, his face frozen. But one of the boys stepped forward and said, "Our mom passed away a few weeks ago. Before she died, she told us who you were." Those words hit him hard. And just like that, a name echoed in his mind. Emily. He hadn't thought of her in years, not since that brief, unforgettable relationship. They'd lived in 2 different worlds. She was too simple for his fast-paced life, and he was too busy to keep up with her heart. What they had burned fast and bright. Then one morning, Emily had quietly left. David went back to his life as if nothing had happened, at least that's what he told himself. But now, he was looking into the eyes of her 2 sons, Noah and Liam. They had his face, his seriousness, his silence. "Was your mom Emily?" he asked, barely above a whisper. The quieter twin nodded. "Yes, Emily." Suddenly, everything clicked. The dates, the ages, the way they looked at him, even the silence. When he asked why she never told him, Noah just shrugged. "We don't know, but she left you a letter," he said, pulling out an old envelope from his backpack. David's hands trembled as he took it. Inside was a handwritten letter from Emily. He didn't read it with his eyes. He read it with his heart. "If you're reading this, I'm no longer around and Noah and Liam have found you. I never told them before because I didn't want to disrupt your life. But now I know you deserve to know them. And even more than that, they deserve to know you." David's throat tightened. The fortress he'd built over the years was crumbling. 10 years. 10 years of not knowing. And now, the door to the past had swung wide open. "Come on," he said finally. "The hotel lobby's not the place for this." No one spoke in the elevator, but the silence was heavy. David's mind was racing. The idea that these kids were really his still felt unreal. But at the same time, it was too real to ignore. When the door to the penthouse opened, the boys stopped. The place looked like a sterile museum. Cold colors, sharp lines, not a trace of a child's voice or presence. This was a home built for one man, a man who had everything in order, but nothing that truly mattered. "Come in," David said, grabbing a bottle of water from the kitchen. "Let's start from the beginning. How did you find me?" Noah opened his backpack and pulled out more papers. Along with the letter, there were photos, birth certificates, address records. Emily had thought of everything. There was no escaping it. This was real. David picked up the letter again. One line at the end stood out. "They're good boys, David. Smart, kind, and strong just like you. They have no one left. Please, don't walk away." And in that moment, for the first time in his life, David made a decision without a plan, without a chart, without a single analysis. "You're not alone anymore," he said quietly. "You're here. And this is your home too." Noah and Liam looked at each other. There was still hesitation in their eyes. But for the first time, there was also something else, hope. And for David Grayson, life would never be the same again. For the first time in his life, David Grayson woke up without the sound of an alarm. It was 6 a.m., and normally by now, he'd already be reviewing meeting notes and replying to shareholder emails. But this morning, the silence in the house felt different. Not empty. It was the kind of quiet that hinted someone else was there. There were soft footsteps in the hallway, a kitchen drawer opening and closing, and 2 kids whispering to each other. The twins, Noah and Liam. David got out of bed, threw on a t-shirt, and walked quietly toward the living room. There, in front of the kitchen counter, he saw 2 small figures. Noah was stretching to reach something in the cupboard, arms out like a mini gymnast. Liam was sitting at the table with a cereal bowl in his lap, fully focused on the box in front of him. They'd started their own little breakfast routine. It was so simple, so normal, so instinctive. And it hit David hard. These kids had been taking care of themselves for a long time. When he walked in, they both jumped. Noah quickly pulled his hand back, and Liam grabbed his bowl, like he was afraid it would fall. "It's okay," David said gently. "Looks like you made your own breakfast." "That's great." Noah shrugged. "We're used to it. We usually did it when Mom was working." Liam didn't say anything, but his eyes were scanning David's face, like he was comparing it to the idea of what a dad was supposed to look like he was trying to fill in the blanks. David stepped into the kitchen and turned on the coffee machine. He didn't know what to say. No meeting, no urgent email, just two unfamiliar kids, and a quiet that didn't belong to him but somehow also did. A quiet that now carried a strange, new feeling, belonging. "How about we go shopping today?" he said, taking a sip of coffee. "Clothes, school stuff, maybe some books." Noah raised an eyebrow. "Do people like you go shopping?" "Like? By yourself?" David smiled. "Not usually, but I will for you." Liam nodded slightly for the first time. "Can we go to a bookstore?" Something tugged at David's chest. He pictured Emily reading to them at night, imagined how they must have escaped into the pages of those stories. He hadn't been a part of any of that. But now, maybe he had a chance to catch up. "We'll go," he said firmly. "You can pick as many books as you want." That day, David stepped into a store with the twins for the first time. In his world, shopping meant approving tailored suits pre-selected by an assistant, or adding to his watch collection. But walking through the kids' clothing section and sifting through discount shoe racks, that was a whole different world. Still, the twins were so natural. They looked at price tags. They steered away from flashy things. It was like they'd learned to live with just enough. David couldn't help himself. "Forget the prices," he said. "Get whatever you want. No limits today." Noah held up a pair of sneakers. "These are fine. They're comfy and light." Liam picked a classic backpack. It wasn't colorful or trendy, but David imagined Emily might have chosen something like that. Simple, reliable, just like her. They stopped at a small cafe for lunch. David scanned the menu while sneaking glances at the boys. Noah was outgoing, not shy about cracking a joke. Liam was quiet, observant, thoughtful, different in every way, but together, they made sense. Just like a family. "Want to go anywhere else?" David asked. Liam replied instantly. "Bookstore." David nodded. "Of course." At the bookstore, Liam's eyes lit up. He reached for shelves, turned pages slowly and carefully like they were made of glass. Noah found himself a fun adventure novel. And David? He just watched, completely unsure what he should be looking for. "You should get a book too," Liam said to him. David laughed. "I haven't read a book in years." "Maybe now's a good time to start," Liam replied, still flipping through a novel. That moment hit David again. These kids hadn't just entered his life. They were changing it. They were reshaping his routines, filling the empty spaces, shifting his priorities. That night, on the drive back, the twins leaned their heads against the windows in the back seat. They weren't talking. They weren't even tired. Just peaceful. And in that silence, David felt something new. He looked in the rearview mirror and whispered to himself, "I'm not alone anymore." For David Grayson, every morning used to be exactly the same. Wake up at the same time. Drink the same coffee. Read the same headlines. Wear the same suit. Routine was his armor. But now, there were two kids living in his house. And with them, that perfect routine was slowly starting to crack. The first thing he noticed was the silence. Not the cold, soul-crushing kind he was used to. This was different. There were giggles coming from the living room, footsteps running through the hallway, the clinking of glasses in the kitchen. At first, it was irritating. Then, oddly comforting. One morning, he walked into the kitchen to find Noah climbing a chair, reaching for a cereal box on the top shelf. Liam stood next to him, arms crossed, watching. "You're gonna fall," Liam said in his calm, warning tone. "Relax, I got this," Noah muttered, rolling his eyes. That's when David stepped in. "Or, you could just ask," he said, gently guiding Noah down before grabbing the box himself and placing it on the counter. Noah looked away, a little embarrassed. "I thought I could do it myself." David smiled. "You probably could, but sometimes, asking for help is the smarter move." Even that simple moment stuck with David, because in his world, asking for help used to be a sign of weakness. But these kids were teaching him something else. Closeness isn't weakness. It's connection. During breakfast, Liam was quiet as usual, but holding his sketchbook. David had noticed he often scribbled in it, page after page. That morning, for the first time, David peeked at one of his drawings. It was a city skyline. Tall glass buildings, a distant horizon, a lone bird in the sky. Did you draw this? David asked, not taking his eyes off the page. Liam gave a small nod. I used to draw with Mom. She taught me the basics. Emily's voice echoed in David's mind. Her laugh, her saying, come sit, let's draw something together. She had quietly left his life, but she lived on in these boys. You're really talented, David said softly. I mean it. Liam's eyes lit up just a little. A tiny smile crept onto his lips, but he looked down. That's what Mom used to say. Then Noah suddenly looked up. What were your parents like? The question caught David off guard. No one had ever asked him that so directly before. His mother had been distant. His father, cold and obsessive about success. Love in their house had felt like an obligation, not a feeling. It was complicated, David admitted. My dad was a workaholic. My mom cared way too much about what people thought. Feelings kind of got lost in the mix. Noah squinted. Do you think you turned out like them? That one hit deep. David had spent years trying not to. But had he ended up on the same path anyway? Before the twins, had he ever let anyone in? Made a real connection? I used to, he said after a pause. But I'm starting to think differently now. The boys didn't say anything, but their eyes lingered on him for a while, as if they were saying, we want to believe you. We're just not sure yet. That afternoon, David took them to an exclusive sports complex in the city. It was a place he usually brought business partners, an elite, polished club. But today, the people with him weren't CEOs. They were two curious little boys. Noah's face lit up the moment he saw the baseball field. Is this real? Can we actually play here? Yeah, David said. Do you want to? Noah grabbed a glove without hesitation. I'm ready. Liam, on the other hand, quietly wandered over to the basketball court. He started shooting slowly, watching the ball spin through the air. And David saw how much was going on inside that quiet boy. Even his silence had layers. David sat on a bench, just watching. Then something inside nudged him. He got up and walked over to Noah. Mind if I join? Noah looked surprised. Seriously? Without a suit? David grinned. Today, I'm just dad. They tossed the ball back and forth. David's reflexes were a bit rusty, but Noah's laughter forgave every bad throw. Liam soon joined them, and the three of them played together, really played. For the first time, David saw them laugh. Not just a smile or a polite chuckle, real, full-on laughter. It seemed like a small thing, but to David, it was worth more than the biggest deal he'd ever closed. On the ride home, the car was quiet again. But this time, it wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. In the back seat, Noah leaned his head against the window, eyes closed, arm behind his head. Liam stared out at the city, quietly sketching something in his notebook. And David thought to himself, I'm changing. And this time, it's the right direction. Everything was different now for David Grayson. The morning coffee, the pre-meeting notes, the late-night piles of reports. All of that had started to fade into the background. Because now, when he woke up, the first thing on his mind wasn't the company, it was Noah and Liam. Did they eat breakfast? Did they pack their school bags? Did they sleep well? Did they have bad dreams? But getting used to something is one thing. Earning trust, that was something else entirely. That morning, David woke up early. He cleaned up the kitchen before the boys got up. And for the first time in his life, he tried making pancakes. They didn't taste great, but the effort was real. When the boys walked into the kitchen, their surprise was written all over their faces. Noah, am I dreaming, or is that really you standing there? Liam joked, rubbing his eyes. David chuckled. Nope, this is real. Breakfast is on me today. Noah took a bite, chewed slowly, then looked down with a smirk. Not bad, I guess. David winked. It's my first try. Next time I'll show up in a chef's hat. Later that day, David had to tackle something totally new. Paperwork for school enrollment. He was used to contracts, stock transfers, and investment summaries, not vaccination records, birth certificates, and old notes handwritten by Emily. Each word made his throat tighten. The school was picked out, but there was a problem during registration. Custody papers? The administrator asked, eyeing him carefully. Do you have any legal connection to the children? David hesitated. The boys turned to him with wide eyes. Not yet, he said firmly. But I will. Noah's eyes shifted, searching, like he was watching closely to see if David meant what he said. Liam stayed quiet, withdrawn. Both of them were bracing for disappointment like they'd been here before. That night, the house was quieter than usual. No excitement over movie choices. Dinner left half-eaten. David knew why. They still didn't feel safe. Not completely, After they went to their rooms, David stayed alone in the living room, staring out the large window. The city lights sparkled, but inside, he felt hollow. For the first time, he truly felt not enough. What made him a CEO, drive, strategy, control, wouldn't make him a father. That took something else: patience, kindness, consistency. The next morning, he made a decision. He went to see a lawyer and started the legal process for guardianship. He brought every document he had: Emily's notes, the boy's story. When everything was ready, he returned home and called Noah and Liam into the living room. He pulled 2 folders from his coat and placed them on the table. "What's that?" Noah asked. David sat down. "I filed for custody. I don't just want to be your dad in words. I want it to be official." Noah didn't respond. He looked away. Liam slowly lifted his head. "Really?" David nodded. "Really? This isn't temporary." Liam stood up and walked over to him slowly. A small moment, but it carried the weight of a lifetime. He wrapped his arms around David, said nothing. David froze. Then he returned the hug, holding those small shoulders carefully. His chest tightened, because at that moment, for the first time, he felt like a father. Noah still hadn't said a word. But later that night, as he walked past David's room, he mumbled just loud enough to hear, "Thanks for trying." David didn't stop him. He just smiled, because he knew trust doesn't grow overnight. But it had been planted. And that night, for the first time ever, David Grayson fell asleep without thinking about work. Because in the quiet of that house, there was finally a sound he could believe in: the silence of trust. For years, David Grayson measured the meaning of life in success, numbers, and prestige. To him, wealth meant a CEO's chair and stock shares rising on the market. But now, as he looked at Liam lying on the living room floor sketching, and Noah stretched out on the couch watching a soccer game, that word meant something completely different. That morning, he'd gotten up without an alarm. Because now he had a reason. Making breakfast for the twins, checking their backpacks before school, running out the door to hand over a forgotten sketchbook. It had all become part of his new routine. And the best part? He actually loved it. It was a Saturday morning. Spring sunlight poured in through the windows, and David sat with the boys in the living room, sipping his coffee, eyes on Liam's notebook. "What are you drawing today?" he asked. Liam lifted his pencil slightly. "Us. The 3 of us." David tilted his head with a smile. "And how are you drawing us?" Liam thought for a second. "You're in the middle. No phone. No paperwork. Just us." Noah's holding a ball. "I'm drawing." David chuckled. "Sounds pretty accurate." Right then, Noah sat up. "Can we go to a real game today? Like an actual stadium? You can get tickets, right?" David rolled his eyes. "Maybe I'll use my CEO powers and pull a few strings." Noah grinned. "Awesome." That afternoon, they went to the stadium. The stands were packed. Cheers echoed in the air. For David, it was the first time he was at an event like this without work involved. And honestly, he wasn't even watching the game that closely. He was watching his kids. Noah stood, chanting with the crowd, full of energy. Liam stayed close, sketching scenes from the field into his notebook. And in that moment, David realized something. He'd missed 10 years. Their first steps, first teeth, first days of school. He couldn't go back and change any of it. But he could build everything from here. On the drive home, the car was quiet. But not the cold kind of silence David used to know. This one was warm, peaceful. Noah leaned his head against the seat, eyes closed. Liam stared out the window, occasionally glancing at his reflection in the glass. David looked at them through the rearview mirror and asked, "You know what the best investment I ever made is?" "Want to guess?" Noah opened one eye. "A tech company?" David laughed. "Nope." Liam turned his head. "Is it us?" This time, David nodded slowly, seriously. "Yeah, it's you too." There was a pause. Then Noah sat up, smiling. That was nice to hear. That night, before the boys went to sleep, David checked in on them. Noah was reading in bed. Liam was working on a new drawing. David stopped beside both, ruffled their hair, and whispered goodnight. As he was about to close the door, Noah called out behind him, "David." He paused. They had always called him David. "Yeah." Noah grinned. "I mean, we can start calling you Dad now, right?" David's breath caught. His throat tightened. His eyes filled with tears, though he didn't show it. "Of course," he said softly. "Anytime. As much as you want." Liam nodded quietly. Then, "Good night, Dad." That night, David didn't sleep. He sat alone in the living room. But this wasn't loneliness. For the first time in his life, he felt full, whole, and he whispered to himself, "Wealth isn't how many zeros are in your bank account. Real wealth is hearing the word dad from behind a bedroom door." And so, David Grayson, once a man who'd climbed to the highest offices of solitude, had finally reached the highest place of all, being a father. This story didn't end there, but it started right where it mattered most, as a real family. If this man's journey from loneliness to true fatherhood made you pause and reflect, please like the video and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this.